Hi, Mandy Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington Realtors legal hotline lawyer, and this is a video in our series entitled Overconfident Sellers plus Overeager Buyers equals Broker Liability. And the practice I want to talk about today is a practice that we are seeing undertaken by buyer brokers. Buyer brokers, you are working with clients who are often a frazzled mess. They have made repeated offers, they've failed to be the winning buyer in those offers, and they are now they're grasping at straws to be the buyer for this property. Combine with that the fact that lots of buyers are coming from out of town and they're not even here on a day-to-day basis, and so they're trying to buy houses either remotely or else they're here for a very few days trying to buy, and they're losing houses, left and right, and it becomes very frustrating to them. And what we're seeing within the industry is brokers, and this isn't just buyer brokers, it could be sellers brokers too, but we're seeing it more with buyer brokers, but everybody pay attention. We're seeing brokers volunteer to take on more and more services for their clients. Don't worry, I'll talk to the planning department and make sure that you can put the addition onto the house. I will talk to the sheriff and see what the crime statistics have been in the neighborhood. I will go to the school district and get a report on what the testing statistics have been for this school district. Think outside the box. Think of all of the services that you offer to do for your clients. Nothing in the law says you can't do these things for your clients, but here's what the agency law does say. The agency law says that when you undertake additional duties, you are required to perform those duties competently. So if you undertake the services of legal counsel, for example, in dealing with the planning department to determine what limitations there may be on expanding the square footage of a house, and you fail to take note of the fact that there's a bald eagle nesting near this site, for example, and you assure your buyer, go ahead, purchase this property, you can expand the house, and you're right as far as the availability of building permits and setback requirements and on and on and on, but you fail to take account of the fact that there's a bald eagle's nest, then you have failed to competently provide that service to your buyer. You agree to give your client the crime statistics. By the time when you go to get the information from the sheriff's department, the level 3 sex offender has not yet moved in next door. And by the time the buyer moves in, the level 3 sex offender is living there. And they are relying on your accounting of the crime statistics, and you didn't account for that because the level 3 sex offender didn't move in until the next day after you got your report. The best course in all of these situations, and I've given you 3 very limited examples, think of the very broad range of services. People ask you, on the hotline, I get questions from brokers all the time asking me about tax consequences. What's the tax consequence of my seller doing this or my buyer doing that? For goodness sake, I have no idea. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a tax accountant. You're a real estate broker. You're not a tax accountant. People ask me also all the time questions about, what should the buyer do when they're unhappy post-closing with the condition of the property? Or what should buyer do before closing when they're unhappy with the condition of the property? When those buyers are asking you those questions, they're asking you legal questions. You ask me that question because I'm the legal hotline lawyer. It makes sense for you to ask me that question, but I don't represent your clients. I can't give you legal advice that for you to then turn around and give to them. This is a tricky issue. Realtors are in the business of solving problems. That's what you do from the day that seller needs to sell their house or buyer needs to find a house until you get to the closing table. You solve one problem after the next. And when the buyer or the seller asks you to help them solve a problem that is well outside the bounds of real estate brokerage services, I know that realtors are eager to try and solve that problem. If you want to talk about whether or not the problem your client has asked you to solve is within the scope of real estate brokerage services, or if you want to talk about the best way to help that client find the professional who can meet their needs, send me an email, legalhotline@warealtor.org. Thank you for being a Washington Realtors member.